Alright, so listen. You do not have to spend $400 for a Sinful Spoils engine. I'm telling you. Today we're going to be talking about top 5 decks that you can build for under $100. So stay tuned for that and let me know your thoughts in the comments, what other decks you feel like have to make this list and what you're going to be playing in the next format to also maybe stay on a budget. And also, if you like the video, make sure to give it a like. So let's go ahead and get started with the first deck. I feel like Fire Kings with Tri-Brigade have a lot of potential. Mainly what the cool thing about them is the fact that they are budget friendly. An entire core of Fire King Tri-Brigade is going to cost you about $49, and I included all the necessary stuff, also like Ancient Warriors, the Double Dragon Lords, all of that, even though it's like a $10 card for some reason. It is a super rare, but yes, okay. It's gonna be around $50. And if you want to include some extra deck staples like Apollousa, Goddess, and IP, you're going to spend about $72 to $73 for an entire deck, which is still under $100, so insanely accessible. And let's talk about the actual deck. So Fire Kings are going to be very strong moving forward. That's no secret. So you have versions with Rescuees that started to pop up here and there, which is kind of wild. Obviously, you can play with Sinful Spoils, which is like why you would play it with that is because of consistency and because of all the busted cards post Maze of Millennia and Phantom Nightmare as well. But the actual engine is good by itself. The quick XYZ you can go for, and having a ton of follow-up while disrupting your opponent here and there. There's negation, non-targeting destruction, dodging targeting negation with Kirin, which is just a really busted card by itself. And with the Tri-Brigade engine, you're able to access link monsters, so you can disrupt your opponent that way, or just build a board of Apollousa, for example, to negate monster effects. And Revolt. Revolt is really important because you have just banish during your opponent's turn. That's also non-targeting, which is amazing. And both of these engines give you a lot of follow-up, so you're able to OTK on the following turn. That's pretty much what Tri-Brigade has been doing. But with the addition of the Fire King engine, you're able to do something if your stuff actually gets disrupted. Because the main issue with Tri-Brigade was that it's not able to play through that much if you don't open the optimal hand. But with the inclusion of another engine, you're just able to do that much more. It feels like, you know, Sprite Tri-Brigade or Bird Up or anything like that, but the Fire engine with Fire Kings is just much, much better in my opinion. So yeah, I feel like it's just nice because this deck has been around for some time and then it just wasn't that good. And, you know, just having this deck in the meta overall is kind of nice. And it's not always that easy to play through Revolt. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of great things about this deck, but it also depends on how much you want to invest further into it, because obviously we haven't mentioned SP at all. That card is like the go-to card for any mid-range deck. It's usually SP control. So if you want to include that card as well, obviously you're going to have to spend more money. Yeah, just overall, I feel like this deck can do a lot. But if you want to further invest into it, obviously you're probably going to do a little better because SP is just such an important card in the meta. All I'm saying is it's not necessary for you to compete. And you still have all the other extra deck staples like Apollousa, IP, and the rest that we discussed. Now, the next deck I want to talk about is, it's just going to be Runic variants. Now, I said you can build whole decks for under $100, which you can still do, or you can go like just a tiny bit over, but I'll explain everything. So let's talk about the Runic core first. It is around $40. So anything else that you include has to be around 60 to maybe 70 to make a competitively viable deck and still be in the $100 range, if that makes sense. Now, a version that's been popping up a lot lately is Generator Runic. So I did count the entire Generator core as well, and it's about $74. So if you include both of them together, you're still getting a fairly cheap deck that's actually really good. And with Runic, you can just include so many different things in the deck, and it's just going to depend on what you already have on hand. So that's why I wanted to include this, because it's just going to be personal preference and what you already own or what you actually want to invest into. There's a lot of Sprite versions. There's Orcust with Runic and with Bistio Runic, which has a couple expensive cards actually. Horus with Runic and any other version is also not that cheap, but the generator stuff I feel like is nice. Like generator is low-key good. Like it's always been okay, but Ash on the field spell just hurts a lot and it just wasn't able to play through that much disruption. But with Runic cards, you have this entire engine backing up your plays and just having all of this utility to go into a diverse meta. You have spell trap removal, monster removal, negation, and just you draw into everything. And what I also really love is the fact that with generator, like I said, you have to have specific hand traps to stop it, but you also are going to need the same hand traps to stop Runic. So it's going to be similar to like Branded Chimera. It's going to like pick your poison. You have to decide what you want to disrupt, but then you also need to keep in mind that the other part of the engine is going to hurt you. So there's that. And yeah, like I feel like generator can do some unexpected things if you're not prepared for it. And they actually do a lot. And with Runic backing them up, I don't think it's that easy to actually beat that deck. And it's still fairly cheap, like I said. And yeah, just overall Runic is nice in this meta, like I keep mentioning. And I feel like this has to make the list today. So let's move on to the number 3 deck on today's list. And again, it's going to be more of a core, more of a choose whatever you want, you know, build your own deck. I wanted to talk about Sprite. With Sprite Starter going to 3, now you're going to spend about 90 euros for a Sprite core. But the great thing about Sprite is, again, the versatility, the adaptability, and you can just play a lot of different things with Sprite. You can go for the Sprite Tri-Brigade route, which again, Tri-Brigade is not expensive. You can play it with Runic, like I said before. If you combine the 90 euros for Sprite and about 40 euros for Runic, again, you're staying under $150 and you have a competitively viable deck. There's Evo Twin versions. If you don't want to include Runic, you can just play Sprite with Evo Twin. Sprite with Fur Hire, obviously. Sprite with just Melfi, going second Sprite. There's a lot. So yeah, I definitely wanted to talk about this deck. I feel like if you play Sprite well enough, you should be fine. There's a lot of space for your non-engine, and you also just put up very decent interruptions with Sprint, with Red and Carrot, obviously, and Smashers and all that. So I think it's not a bad choice. Also, if you maybe already own the core, if you never got rid of it. Starter did go up, but that was kind of expected. So again, if you already owned all of it, then you're fine. Then you only have to spend for the Runic side of things. So in total, you're spending about $40 for a deck if you already had the Sprite cards. I think there's a lot of potential there, and also Sprite can be a little unexpected right now. And I think with Sprite, you can catch a lot of people off guard if they don't really know how to play against it. So yes, I think Sprite is worth looking into. And as for the 4th deck on today's list, I had to go for Flunder. Listen, a Flunder core is 34 euros. So you're literally spending about 40, let's say, for a couple more cards that you want to include. In this calculation, I did not include the extra deck. And if you want to play like Lyrilusc stuff and Zeus and all of that, you can do it if you want. But the actual core with Harpy's Featherstorm, Raiza, Shifter also was included here because it's like an honorary Flunder card. You're gonna spend about $30. And I think that's awesome. If you just want to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And stay on a budget, I would definitely recommend Flunder. You're also able to actually compete because Shifter is nice against the meta, and Harpy's Featherstorm is really unfair. Now, the only issue, I guess, with that is that Thrust is obviously not cheap. And Thrust works in tandem with your Harpy's Featherstorm and your board breakers, because usually what Flunder relies on is having board breakers that you can set or search with Thrust. So that would be like an additional investment that you would have to make. But that's up to you. You can do whatever you want. You can slowly add to your deck, but you still have a viable deck for about $40. So I think that's awesome. And as for the last deck, I wanted to talk about Unchained. Now maybe that's copium, I don't know, but the Unchained core is about, let me check, $78. And I did include Wave Hiking Caesar, extra deck stuff. For the most part, that's just Unchained cards, but you also have to include like Muckracker and Nightmare Monsters, for example. But that's not gonna cost you that much. And yeah, as for the core, like most of your deck is Unchained stuff. So then you only have to spend for your staples, your hand traps, all of that. With Unchained, it's just a little tough right now because consistency is not really ideal. So then you would also have to play Prosperity. And with 3 copies of Prosperity, which is actually not that expensive at all, it's about $5, which is great compared to what it used to be. With that, you're gonna have to spend about $93 to $94 for the entire deck. The issue with Unchained is that the regular combos had to change with only 1 Shavara. If you compare it to Rescue Ace, 1 Lifter is still enough for you to do your combo. But with only 1 Shavara in Unchained, your actual combos changed. So now you have to probably include bricks or just wait until Phantom Nightmare for the level 6 Berserk Archfiend, I think, to have an additional card in your deck that actually does something and is a level 6 and you can make XYZ plays, destroy your fiends, all of that. And I feel like if you really grind your combos, if you learn them, or if you come up with new stuff to be able to play with only 1 Shavara, I think you should be fine because Unchained end boards are just really, really good. There's a whole ton of disruption. You have a bunch of follow-up as well. So if you play the deck well, it's always been rewarding. The ban list obviously hurt it, but you're still playing a budget-friendly deck, but you have to make the deck work. So it's gonna be a little tougher. That's why it was the last deck on today's list. I don't want to discourage you. I think there is potential in Unchained and it's also cheap, but you're gonna have to find the routes, the build, and really make it work. I still had to include it though because it was just such a good deck and it's really nice if you know how to play it and if you open well enough, which is going to be a little tougher moving forward, but I still think you should be fine. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video and let me know if there's any deck on here that you actually play or are planning to build in real life. Like the video if you enjoyed it, make sure to comment and also ding the bell so you are notified when I post, and I'll see you in the next video.